a film about the nightmarish experiences of sleep paralysis that tries to be equal parts documentary and equal parts suspenseful horror film. Well, film, you piqued my interest and you were easily available to me on Netflix. So, here's my review. If you happen to see the cover of this film on Netflix or any other streaming network that you might use, and go into it thinking it's going to be a strictly horror film, let me just warn you that first and foremost, this is a documentary. And it's a documentary about a real thing called sleep paralysis. I should know I have experienced sleep paralysis several times during my years in high school. Yeah, sometime when I was in high school, for some reason I would have sleep paralysis every night, and it happened for about a week or so. Thankfully, I realized what it was, and somehow it hasn't really happened to me again. Knock on wood. But anyway, The Nightmare tells a story of several different people that seem to be very sensitive to sleep paralysis, and for some reason experience it more often than other people. So this film interviews these several different people, shows the experiences that they've had, retells it into a mystery horror fashion, as these people try to cope with their experience and try to find a deeper meaning to the sleep paralysis and why they are suffering from it. Now, I did rather enjoy this documentary. I thought it was pretty neat. But then again, maybe it's just because I can easily relate to these different people's experiences because I suffered from sleep paralysis myself back in high school. What I found very interesting about the film is just how similar a lot of their experiences were to me. Now, none of them were exactly like I experienced, but everyone had a little bit of some of the things that I experienced for myself. And if I were to mash all their experiences together, that would pretty much be what my experiences of sleep paralysis was. Now, if you don't know what sleep paralysis is, it's basically when your REM sleep is interrupted. Now, the description of this condition is very vague, and there's not a lot of information explaining it or even figuring out why it happens. But basically, there are two things that can happen. One of the things that can happen is your body falls asleep before your brain or consciousness, sort of. From what I looked up, it seems like during REM sleep, your brain sort of produces a chemical that sort of paralyzes your body so you don't act out your dreams. And I guess one of the conditions that could happen with sleep paralysis is somehow this chemical gets into your body before you fully fall asleep. And so your mind is in this dreamlike state, kind of in between dream and being fully aware. And so your body feels like it's paralyzed because it is. And you just start hallucinating about things that could be possibly pinning you down and keeping you from getting up. The other way is that somehow your mind wakes up before you get out of REM sleep, and so your body's, again, still paralyzed, but your mind is waking up and you feel like, oh my God, something's pinning me down, I can't get up. And it can lead to some really horrific hallucinations. Now, what I find really fascinating is just how similar so many people's experiences of sleep paralysis is. They seem to have the same hallucinations. They think of the same things that possibly could be pinning them down, whether it be a ghost, shadow figures, aliens, black cats. A lot of people have some of the same similar situations that they dream up. It's kind of fascinating how the mind works in trying to figure out, okay, I'm pinned, there's something wrong, what's holding me down? And so you're looking in the darkness and you try to figure out what it could be that's holding you down, and so your brain makes shapes for the shadows that you see, and a lot of people have the same sort of hallucinations. This documentary goes into a little bit of detail about some really interesting ideas, such as how sleep paralysis could sort of explain away maybe some of the experiences of alien abductions. How different creatures of mythology possibly could be symptoms of sleep paralysis. How horror movies can use this sleep paralysis and some of the experiences of sleep paralysis to inspire their horror film. And I think it's really interesting in how some of these other people try to bring meaning to sleep paralysis and how they're trying to figure out why is this happening to me and so on and so forth. Yeah, this documentary brings up a lot of interesting ideas, but it doesn't have any solid conclusions or answers to it all. Now the film is mostly comprised of reenactments of some of these people's experiences. To some people this might be a little bad because they're not the greatest of actors. In fact, there are several moments where they try to use the real person as much as they can during some of these nightmarish scenes. And sometimes these scenes aren't quite terrifying as much as they're just trippy and weird. Now for me, I'm completely fine with that. I see a lot of sort of reenactment horror movies or series such as Paranormal Witness for one. And it's about the same sort of quality acting wise and some of the things you might see in the film as Paranormal Witness. So if you're a fan of Paranormal Witness, you might honestly like The Nightmare. Also, if you've never experienced sleep paralysis for yourself, then you might honestly not like this movie. It definitely caters to those who have lived through this sort of experience. Because of that, I ended up liking it because, like I said, I've been through sleep paralysis. I know what it's like. And so I ended up liking it more on a personal level. But yeah, The Nightmare is not for everyone, but for me, I'm going to give The Nightmare 3 stars. So, have you seen The Nightmare? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If you haven't, what is your favorite documentary of all time? Or better yet, if you've had sleep paralysis, what sort of experiences have you had? If anyone's interested, maybe I'll do a video on some of my experiences because they've been some really creepy experiences. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.